Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where this time we're going to be doing a little bit of a retrospective on the Solo movie, which was meant to be the first of a series of standalone films that would focus on sort of a spin-off with certain characters in the Star Wars universe. They had planned to do one for Kenobi and Boba Fett, and as we know, those were later repurposed into shows on Disney Plus. And I think the thing about Solo is it's considered by Disney to be a box office failure, which, let's be honest, it is, as far as it didn't make the money that was really expected out of a major Star Wars film with the budget it had. But in all honesty, I don't necessarily think that's the fault of the movie. I think we have to look at the underlying issues that kind of plagued this movie's release, the poor marketing, the reception from The Last Jedi, and kind of a rocky production with them having to scrap some of the ideas they had early on. They had to bring in Ron Howard to kind of finish the job and piece together a movie that was able to go into theaters. But with all that being said, having rewatched the Solo movie, and mind you, out of all the Star Wars films, it is probably the movie I've seen the least. Um, I watched it maybe less than 5 times total, but it's honestly not a bad movie. It's not the worst thing that we've gotten in Star Wars, and believe me, we've gotten some very questionable projects under the Disney era. But Solo had a little bit of charm to it. I think the idea of a kind of gangster, crew movie was not the worst idea in the world. And using Han Solo as a character and taking the opportunity to give him a backstory, kind of showing how he became Han Solo, is pretty cool in retrospect. It does feel a little bit like a checklist where it's like, okay, here's where he gets Chewie, and here's where he gets the gun, and here's where he gets the Millennium Falcon. Some of that felt kind of forced. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a darker history for Han. Um, but I mean, the events of the film are pretty dark, with him having to learn about trusting people and betrayal and the heartbreak that comes with the love with Kira, and how that kind of affected him and made him really realize that people are really only out for themselves, and that's kind of the type of person that he ends up molding himself to be. But I thought the villains of the movie were kind of the weaker part. Obviously, you get Darth Maul at the end with the big reveal that he's in charge of Crimson Dawn, which is cool. It's a shame they never really got to follow that storyline a lot with Maul and Kira, but the film itself kind of lacks in interesting villains. I mean, Dryden Voss is what he is. I mean, he's kind of like just your typical big top mobster guy that is threatening to kill people if they don't bring him the money or whatever the case may be. Um it's a little bit of a cliche there. Beckett, more of a morally gray character, just kind of out for himself. So I think lacking a very strong central antagonist in this film kind of hurt it a little bit. The Pikes also serve as kind of secondary antagonists, and it was really cool to get to see the Pikes brought into the larger scope of the Star Wars universe, as we would see much more of them later in projects like the Book of Boba Fett. And they're kind of originated from the Clone Wars too, so cool stuff. As a film as a whole, it's fine. Like I said, it's not the most memorable Star Wars event, but for a movie that had such a rocky production, it was able to it was able to come together to be a decent film. It's enjoyable. It's got good humor, and I got to talk about the acting because I really think the actor they portrayed as Han Solo had such a huge role to step into, being obviously Harrison Ford's character. He's not going to be Harrison Ford, so it's kind of unfair to put that on him, but I actually thought he did a decent job. I think he kind of nailed some of the mannerisms and the tonality of Han. And you also have to consider this is Han at a very different point in his life, so he's not going to be a one-to-one scale of the Han Solo that we know from the original trilogy. But I thought he did very well with what he had to work with. Donald Glover, I thought was fantastic as a young Lando, really captured that charisma and kind of devilish charm that Lando has always kind of been known for. So, and obviously Emilia Clarke is amazing in most things that she's in. So, Kira, great character and a great addition to the franchise. You got Chewie in there, and you have the supporting cast, which some of which gave more memorable performances than others, but Woody Harrelson as Tobias Beckett, not a bad casting at all. I think that's a good role for him in Star Wars. So I thought they nailed the casting. Like I said, I think the actual plot of the movie could have been a little bit more interesting. It all seemed very surface level. Didn't take a lot of huge risks other than the Maul cameo at the very end, which from what I've come to understand was a last minute decision. So that probably wasn't even the original intention, but obviously we know this movie suffered greatly because the fandom was very upset after the mixed reception of The Last Jedi. And then having this film come out some 6 months later put it in a really bad position to begin with. The marketing was not the best that Star Wars has done, actually, might be the worst. Um, but looking back on it now, I think Solo is a movie that you can enjoy, accept it for what it is. Again, not the worst Star Wars, but pretty mid, and something that I still appreciate because, like I said, the casting was phenomenal, and there were some good moments and good storylines woven into this overall movie. So that's just my thoughts on Solo. Just kind of wanted to talk about that old film for a minute. It feels so strange that it's been so long since it came out, but a lot of time has passed. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you watching. As always, hit that subscribe button, helps the channel grow. May the force be with you. Now let's blow up that like button and go home.